Good afternoon and welcome back to my channel, Your Energy Works. This is episode 28 in the series. Before we start, I'm going to talk about a topic which is very close to my heart, and I want to protect you in this. So in the first episode of this series, I teach a practice for protecting you from being triggered, and I'd like you to assume that position now. So if you stretch your arms out in front of you, turn your fingers inwards, entwine your fingers, lift your hands over your head, place your hands on the nape of your neck and press your elbows back. In this pose, you can't be triggered. In the second episode in this series, I explain why this is effective. But simply, if you can hold this pose during this talk, anything I say, you won't be triggered. Now, for myself, recently I'm involved in a number of online support groups. And in one such group, 3 young people were in contact with me. One was a 12-year-old boy who was worried for his sibling who was self-harming. He didn't know how to help his sibling, and he couldn't understand why his sibling hated themselves. The second young person contacted me to say that she wanted to stop self-harming, and could I help her in teaching her how to stop self-harming. And the third was a young girl who was in therapy, and the therapy wasn't working for her, and she wanted to know could she talk her therapist into letting her go back to self-harm. Now, for myself in my younger life, I self-harmed over a 2 years period. This is a very, very it touches me to the very core, and I'd like to suggest a different perspective of self-harming. Now, please know, at no time am I promoting self-harming or suggesting how wonderful it is, but I just want to give you a different perspective of self-harming and how we can replace that. My own experience was, as with any behaviour, the first time we try a behaviour, that first experience is always wonderful. And we're always trying to recapture that first experience. So whether it's your first drink or your first drug or a first behaviour, the first time you do it, because it's new, it seems wonderful. And we're always chasing that same response. We can never get the same response again because it's no longer the first time. So we're trying to get the same effect we had the first time. This is very much the same with self-harming. The first time I cut myself, I felt this release. I thought I was releasing my energy. Throughout this course I talk about we are energy beings. And if you study anything about chakras, you'll know that in the beginning there were 7 chakras. Now they realize there's more than 7 chakras. There could be hundreds of thousands, there could be millions or trillions of chakras in our beings. There's energy spots all over our bodies. So our energy lines flow from the top of our head down to our fingertips and our toes, and they flow in line with our veins and our nerves. So when we feel the energy blockage, we can feel it in how we feel angry, sad, upset, whatever we feel, it comes through in our bodies. And the concept of self-harming was that when we cut and we release blood, we're releasing the energy. But of course, when you release blood, you become lightheaded by loss of blood. And that sensation of being lightheaded gives the impression of you're releasing the energy, but actually we're not. We're still holding the energy, we're just causing harm to ourselves. Now, when it comes to people who self-harm, there's a lot of shame and guilt around it. And I need to suggest we have to let that go completely. You see, some people who have energy disturbances, they may act out with alcohol or drugs or some behaviour, or they act out with anger and fear, and they take it out on their children or their loved ones, their parents, their husband, their wife, their siblings, their colleagues. They take it out on the family pet. But a person who self-harms, they really have 3 actions, 3 intentions. One is that they don't draw attention to themselves. They don't have people worrying about them. The second is that they don't put their pain on somebody else. And the third is that they manage it themselves. Now, none of it is healthy, but that's what they're doing. They're trying to not hurt or harm anybody else or not put on anybody else. And for that, it's a sign that they're a very powerful person. And if they give them the right tools, they can heal themselves. So there's nothing to be ashamed or guilty for trying to protect those you love and trying to manage your pain yourself. But we want to teach you a new practice, something new you can use. And I suggest you do this practice along with the practice I shared in episode 26. So in this instance, it was shared with me and I found it truly wonderful. When I do this, it's all about visualization. So I imagine I have this chest in front of me, a small chest with a hinge lid and a key. And it's imaginary, but this size, like something you see in Pirates of the Caribbean, but in a small sized chest. And when these thoughts come in, the thoughts to self-harm or the thoughts of being picked on or not being understood, a victim martyr, all those thoughts, I place my hands on my head and I pull all these thoughts together and I grab them all out of my head and I place them into this chest. I close the lid down, lock the chest, put the key over here, take this chest, walk into the bathroom, lift up the toilet seat, drop it in the toilet, place the toilet seat down and flush the toilets. And in this instance, I clear my mind of all this baggage. Then we go and we repeat the prayer practice we had in the episode 26, where we say, Lord God, these thoughts that come to me that cause me to self-harm, that make me feel so less than, so as a victim and a martyr and misunderstood, I wish you to take them from me today. I give them to you now. I'll give them to this morning. Please take them from me for the next 8 hours so I can get a good night's sleep. Lord God, I see a whole host of angels coming down here and taking all this pain from me and giving me freedom. And I thank you this is so. And then simply lay in the bed and visualize in your mind angels surrounding you, protecting you, and you're safe. And then do this again in the morning before you go to school and when you come home from school. So in the morning, you ask for 10 hours. And then in the evening, you ask till bedtime. And do this in 3 cycles each day, every day. And you'll find you're relieved of all these pains and troubles. Thank you all very much for joining me.